Hello and welcome. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX this Saturday. Our big focus on the broadcast today, a third arrest has been made in the Nice church terror attack case in France, where 3 people were killed. The world has condemned the deadly knife attack as tensions in France, which started from the Prophet cartoon, have escalated. France has tightened its security after these attacks and has vowed to not tolerate any unrest, as the foreign minister today alerted of more targeted attacks on French citizens. Meanwhile, India's foreign secretary, who is in Paris, called on the world to act against radicalism, with the French police now probing the motive and the possible involvement of terror groups in these attacks. The question is, who is orchestrating them? Well, joining us a special panel on the broadcast, we have Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, former diplomat, with us live. Sriram Kari, resident editor, Deccan Chronicle, is joining us live. Sumit, political commentator, is also live with us on the broadcast. Dr. Vail Awad, South Asia analyst and senior journalist, is also joining us live. Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, is also live with us on the program. Let me begin with you first, Professor Nalapat. You know, the big question, of course, is that with now intelligence agencies in France warning of more terror attacks, who is orchestrating them? Are these isolated incidents, you believe, Professor Nalapat, or is there now a wider pattern, a diabolical pattern at play?
Well, I'd like to say that, when you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. And unfortunately, under Nicolas Sarkozy, France itself ensured that a lot of radicalized individuals and individuals who were radicalized since that period were basically formed so as to do battle in locations like Syria, Libya, etc. So, I mean, at that point in time, some of us had warned that Sarkozy is sowing the wind and France is going to reap the whirlwind. And this is what is happening. The reality is that there is no excuse for promoting radicalization. That there is no such thing as a good terrorist or a bad terrorist. There is no such thing as a good radical or a bad radical. All radicals are bad, period. And I'm sorry to say, by its involvement in Syria and Libya, and the fact that, for example, in Iraq, ISIS took over large amounts of territory because it bribed generals in Iraq. It bribed them, it bribed officers to just give up their commands so that soldiers were completely left defenseless. They surrendered and ISIS took over the territory. There was no fighting. It's all money. I'm sure the Americans know, the Europeans know, who are the people who bribe these people? Who are the people who bribe people to set up groups in Syria, Libya, Iraq? And if you look at their pamphlets, it's full of hatred. So let me only say that what Europe is experiencing is the whirlwind of what Europe itself has sown.
All right. So Europe, in a way, must introspect, is your assessment. Is that an assessment you are in agreement with, Dr. Awad, that Europe must look inwards at this particular point, on what is befalling France and perhaps might just happen to other European nations as well? Dr. Awad, your analysis.
Absolutely right. I fully endorse what Professor Nalapat have said. Exactly the same. We have been in the same platform. It was only during the Arab Spring we have seen the surge of the terrorists and the extremists in the region, and we have seen more than 12,500 blue eyes terrorist mercenaries have come to Syria and Iraq from Europe. And we were trying to tell the Belgium government and the French and the Holland government and the German that these are terrorists. They used to call them freedom fighters when they were killing and slaughtering people, decapitating the head, parading them in the street, in the open square. And we told them, these are your indigenous terrorists. We did not export terrorists to you. Why are you exporting them to us? And in the same fashion, they were the same coin with Erdogan when he himself facilitated their entry into Syria and into Iraq and have done this havoc inside the country. If I give you the tapes and the videos I collected from the French channels, you will be shocked to show it to your viewers how they decapitated the people and paraded them in cars in front of the children and the cities, and they were displaying the bodies. And it was only the French and the Belgium was the most heinous criminals which we have seen in our territories with under the ISIS flags. So I think they deserve to be blamed. First of all, and we condemn any kind of terrorist act, whether it is in France, whether it is anywhere in the world. Killing of innocent people is condemnable, and it's a terrorist act by all means. There is no religion to this attached to it. What happened in France, and these are the places where there was a small ghettos in Belgium. We have tracked it for 1961. When Belgium had an economic problem, they had asked the help from the Saudis. The Saudi gave them the economic help, provided they opened for them a takfiri, jihadist, Wahhabi mosque and madrasas inside those countries, where they have manufactured all these terrorists, and they have come to all over the world. We've been warning them, they were not listening to us. So why are you now putting the blame on us? This is the time when we have to address terrorism and countering terrorism. As Professor Nalapat said, there is no good or bad terrorists. They are all extremists and radicalism. And I think Europe has to also address these issues from within Europe. France cannot fight it alone. France has to fight it along with the collective, with the whole of European Union. Finally, what the court of the European Court have said, that there is no link between despising a religious body with the freedom of speech. I think the political leader who is trying to take advantage of this right-wing rise in Europe should also be able to get cautious to address issues of, because not every Muslim is a terrorist, and not every terrorist is a Muslim. That we have to understand. There is no religion tax to it whatsoever it is. We have not started the First World War. We have not started the Second World War. We have not attacked Nagasaki and Hiroshima. We have only seen terrorism only recently have developed because you went and you fed terrorists in Libya, in Syria, in Yemen, and in Afghanistan. If you go into your history, you share the blame. We share with us now how to counter this terrorism.
Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, what's your take on what's playing out, of course, currently in France? We've seen the entire world condemn it. India has also, of course, come out and say that the world must call out this radicalism, must take a strong stand against radicalism. But interestingly, of course, there are some nations, the usual suspects, Turkey, Pakistan, who are very soft on France, who are rather calling out Macron for his utterances currently. How do you view this debate that has erupted even on radical incidents, even on terror incidents, if we may call it that? Ashok Sajjanhar.
Yeah, thank you, Uday. And first of all, I very much welcome the statement that has emanated from India, from the Indian Ministry of External Affairs, where in unequivocal, unambiguous terms, we have lent our full support to France and lent our full support to President Macron. Meaning this is, of course, goes beyond India and France are strategic partners across a whole spectrum of areas and issues, whether it is nuclear power, it is space, it is defense, across the board. And France has always been with India, even as far as the UN Security Council is concerned, multilateral institutions are concerned. You see, when we were trying to get Masood Azhar on the designated list, it was France which sort of, came up front. All these sort of things. So our relations with France are extremely strong, extremely dynamic, vibrant. And so I'm particularly happy and very warmly welcome this statement by India that has come out. But in addition to the very vibrant relations that India has with France, I think it's also on a matter of principle. I think the principle that President Macron is espousing is very close to the principles and the thinking that India has. And, it has been brought out very clearly by Professor Nalapat and Dr. Wailawad that we do not distinguish between a good terrorist and a bad terrorist. All terrorists are bad terrorists. And this is exactly the point that President Macron has been making, that whatever is happening in terms of, he's not blaming Islam, he's blaming the jihadist Islam, he's blaming the use, the abuse and the misuse of Islam to carry out these activities. And I think the other countries where all these protests are taking place, you mentioned, Uday, and I agree with you, the usual suspects, whether it is Pakistan, it wants also to emerge as a leader of the Muslim Ummah. As far as Turkey, also it wants to be the leader and to sort of recreate the Ottoman Caliphate. So I think all of them have their own reasons. And otherwise, in other countries also, because I've seen that whether it is in Bangladesh, whether it is in Libya, it is in Palestine, there are also the groups that want to take political advantage, because that is what happens in different countries also, that it is the whole issue is politicized so that certain groups can take political advantage out of any development. So here also, I think for many of these extremist Islamic parties, this has come as a godsend. And so they are taking maximum advantage out of it. I think it is the government of France should stand firm on the basis of its principles. Its president has said so, its home minister has said so, that we can expect more such attacks as far as our own people are concerned. But they should stand firm, and I think India also, in dealing with the issues of terrorism, also needs to stand firm. Uday.
Okay, but how do you react then, before I get in, Sumit, Ambassador Sajanhar, to these protests as well? How should they be viewed, which are also being witnessed in India by certain elements as well? In Bhopal, in Mumbai as well, trying to hijack the agenda, trying to actually insult Emmanuel Macron, spoil India's relationship with France. How should these fringe protests, these sporadic protests be viewed in your opinion?
No, I think they need to be dealt with heavy hand, but also reaching out to the people. As I said, here also, it is basically politics which is driving these protests. But reaching out to the people, saying that we have, of course, the world's second or third largest Muslim population in our country, in the world. And so there is, of course, no disrespect meant as far as Islam is concerned. And the whole country is together in celebrating all these festivals and all these religions. But as far as this is concerned, it is the question of terrorist actions. And if it is terrorism, whether it is emanating from Pakistan on the other side, we don't say that it is, when you are acting against Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed, etc., that you are acting against Islam. No, not at all. You are acting against terrorists who are being funded, who are being trained by our adversary, by the army, by the ISI. And I think it's on similar grounds that we have to deal with these issues. Reaching out, clarifying the position, but also taking a very strong position as far as these protests are concerned. Today.
Okay. Sumit Peer, your opinion of how France really is handling the situation currently, obviously with the Nice attack now growing wider, 3 arrests being made, also now, intelligence agencies warning of further attacks which could also take place. And mind you, these are terrorist attacks. These are, there can be no two ways about it. These are terror incidents. These are radical incidents. Sumit, what's your take on the current situation?
Unai, thanks for having me on the show. After the 3 eminent panelists have spoken, I'll start from where learned professor, where Ambassador Sajanhar left. You see, the point number 1 is this is not a war against Islam by any means whatsoever. It's a war against Islamic radicals. There are a lot of vested parties in the world who are trying to make it a clash of civilizations. It is not a clash of civilizations. This Tunisian holding the Holy Quran in one hand and holding a knife and beheading people, I don't think this is the kind of Islam which Islam propagates, or any serving Muslim or any faithful Muslim of the Islam will propagate this kind of Islam. This is the Islamic radical doing what they do best at. And then the problem starts, Uday, Islam is a noble religion. The moment you start using Islam for your political gains, it's called, Islamization. The political use of Islam is Islamization. So the silent majority keeps quiet. Billions of Muslims keep quiet. The third step comes when these radicals like Erdogan, Imran Khan, and these Wahhabis start justifying violence in the name of Islam. It's called Islamic terror. The point I want to make here, why are billions of peace-loving Muslims or the silent majority silent? They cannot let to be silent. I've been always making a point. If you be silent, these fringe elements will take on. They will run the world stage. Now tell me, isn't it the responsibility of the elected president of France to ensure the safety and security of people of France? Can he allow beheadings happening in the roads of France, whatever may be the reasons? If you support Erdogan, if you support Imran Khan, you are supporting beheadings. I know, as simple, plain as that. I want to make one more point. Uday, see the world map today. Hamas, Hezbollah, they are supporting this. Now you have this Tehreek-e-Labik, which is a radical Islamic organization of Pakistan, as per Pakistan, where Masood Azhar and Lakvi run NGOs, They call it a radical Islamic organization. They are protesting against it. Pakistan Army, ISI is protesting against it. And Uday, one last point. Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, who has killed millions of Muslims, 99% of the people he killed are Muslims. They behead a person at the drop of a hat. They kill children. They behead women. They stone them to death on the doubt of adultery. Now he is warning Erdogan of a third world war. Now look where it has gone. Hamas, Hezbollah, Tehreek-e-Labik and Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, out of all, who has killed 99% of the Muslims in all his life. Now he has taken the center stage. This is what the danger is. But I agree with the Ambassador Saab. This is a law and order situation, and everybody has the right to protect its citizens. We cannot let anarchy happen on the roads, and whatever stringent measures you need to take, please take them. And the message is very clear. Imran Khan, Erdogan, Hikmatyar, Hezbollah, Hamas, they might try their best to make it a war of civilizations, to make it a war of Christians against Islam. It is a war against those Islamic radicals, those Tunisians and those Chechenians. It is not a war against all of Chechnya. It's not a war against all of, for that matter, all of Tunisia. It's a war against that particular person who did that act. And as governments, it's our duty to make streets safe. And I support Macron for this. I compliment the government of India for doing such a stand, because France is our strategic partner. Because Uday, there's a time you have to call spade a spade. We cannot always mix religion with terrorism. We have to be very careful to keep this away. I said Islam is a noble religion, but Islamization leads to, Islamic terror. It has to be stopped. The Muslim community, billions of the people across the world have to come up and say, we are not for it. We are not for it. This is not our kind of Islam. We don't support it. And that is what the answer is. Because if you do it, people like Imran Khan, Erdogan, Hezbollah, Hamas and Gulbuddin Hikmatyar will have no space to come in. Block their space, save the world. Do not let anarchy rule the world. That is my take on it, Uday.
All right, let me also bring in Sriram Curry. I think he's also joining our panel at this point on the broadcast. Sriram Curry, there's of course one side of the world that claims that this is a clash of civilizations happening. This is an assault on Islam. There's the other more rational point of view of looking at it by saying that these are terror incidents and they need to be called out. They cannot be justified or supported. How do you really react to this big divide in the world that seems to have erupted, and how this is really going to play out not just in France but in other parts of Europe as well? Could this be once again a turning point of Islam in this battle against the West, if we may call it that's erupted in France and may spread to more parts of Europe?
Thank you, Uday. I've heard all the views from Professor Nalapat to Dr. Awad to Sumit and also Ambassador Ashok. I believe it is a clash of civilizations in a new episode of it, but not in a religious sense, but in ideological sense. The ideology is very simple. Should a state owe its entire morality, obligation, and a sense of sovereignty to religion, any religion? And the answers in the past have been yes and no. Those who answered it yes have created theocratic states. We have several states in the world which are Muslim countries, as we call them, or Islamic states, not in the ISL, but Muslim countries, where they believe Islam is the final law, the final morality to which the state owes its obligation to adhere to. There are, of course, Christian countries and so on and so forth. There is another ideological view, our absolute 180-degree opposite, which believes religion is an individual's political right recognized by the Constitution. So you have a right to practice a religion, promote it, but your religion does not have a political right. Country is supreme, the Constitution is supreme, and it is secular. Secular means a country can reject all moral propositions made by any religion. If a religion feels this is right and the country feels this is wrong, then the nation's view will prevail in that geography. It is not about taking away your right to practice a religion, but that you as a practitioner of that religion owe your larger allegiance primarily to the nation. This is secularism. Simple view. You can't distort secularism no matter where you go from here. In this context, my point is very simple. There are people who say, you cannot offend my religion. This is a new right that is born in the last 50 years, which is pushing back secularism. What the French president is doing is not just doing it for the sake of France or even to Europe. France has the highest number of Muslims in European mainland. That's not the point. Yes, I agree with Professor Nalapat. Historically, we know what France did in the presidency of Sarkozy in Syria and other trouble. You know, you fish in troubled waters. Yes, this is a tactical response to that. But a larger response, what Erdogan is saying is this: I stand for the right of Caesar against the right of God.
Right.
This is a very famous pronouncement on secularism itself. And every country on earth which wishes to reject theocratic thinking will have to stand by Erdogan.
Okay.
Will have to stand by Macron. At a national level, for the Indian Muslims, you know, you have to take it to them in a right way and put it in perspective.
Yes.
Would you like to stand by Mahathir Mohamad Erdogan and more importantly, Imran Taliban Khan, or against the man who's heading a country that gave us Rafale to make us stronger against China and Pakistan? It is an important point here. Remember when the satanic verses controversy erupted, India stood in a way in the wrong side of democracy.
No, but is this a time?
Modern civilization.
Yeah.
This time I'm happy we are standing by France, not just because they are our defense partner,
Okay.
but because we share our defense relationship because of a larger shared value
Ashok,
of modernity, democracy, secularism.
Ashok Sajanar,
and
India's position is appreciable, says Shriram Kari. But, you know, as far as Pakistan and Turkey's position is concerned, you know, it's not that we haven't warned the world. You know, we at NewsX and of course India has warned the world about these positions being taken by these very radical leaders and countries. But the world didn't see it. The world perhaps is also to blame for putting on blinkers, you know, which is why this situation has developed today. Ashok Sajanar.
No, I don't think it is that the world is with Imran Khan. You know, by your comment, one would sort of, you know, think that the world is with Erdogan. The world
but
is with
Ashok
Imran
Sajanar,
Khan.
they have not put them on the blacklist. There's still dialogue happening with Pakistan. The US has also adopted a very friendly approach towards Pakistan in the recent past. With Turkey as well, countries are not as harsh as they should. I mean, these are countries now which are standing with terror, which are standing with radicalism, and the world has treated them with kid gloves. There's no denying that, isn't there, Ashok Sajanar?
No, there's no denying that. I fully agree with you. You see, but as far as Turkey is concerned, you must realize that it is not only today that it is standing with terror. It has always been with Al-Qaeda. It has always been with ISIS.
Yes.
It has been transporting the oil from by ISIS and providing it with funding. It has been supporting Muslim Brotherhood, etc. Even that way, you know, as Professor Wailabad said, even Saudi Arabia has been promoting Wahhabism in a large number of countries. So, you know, you have to balance your relations at this moment. If the world has not come out completely, fully, you know, rest of them, and condemned and castigated what Erdogan is doing and what Imran Khan is doing, it doesn't mean that the world is with them. I do not think that the world is with them. The world is definitely against them. But one point is, you know, when we are looking at all these demonstrations in these different countries, it is the fringe elements. But since these fringe elements tend to make a lot of noise, it tends to get reported all around the world. And the world thinks that, you know, maybe this is what the narrative is. I don't think this is the narrative. I think what Sumit had said earlier, it is the silent majority, which really has to become a vocal majority and has to come out and has to, give out its own position on all these issues. We have seen it across the board, you know, in any sphere that we are there, that it is the majority which keeps silent because it doesn't want to get involved. This is not the time to keep silent. And we know that the whole world, even as far as, you take it in China, the Uyghurs, the Muslims, it is the majority which is really kept silent, and for its own interest, China has been able to weaponize its influence on a large number of countries. Here also, different countries, the manner in which they are acting in their personal interest. They might have kept a facade of Islam, protection of Islam and the Muslim Ummah in front of them, but otherwise they are all acting for their own parochial interest. Uday.
All right, Sumit Peer, I think wanted to respond. Yes, Sumit, go ahead.
I think, Uday, you see what the things have gone bad. You see the comment of Mahathir Mohamad that you have the right to kill millions of French. Are we living in medieval times? Are we living in prehistorical times? This was the elected Prime Minister of Malaysia. This is what happens when you let people like Erdogan, Imran and Mahathir take the command. This is what, are you pushing the Europe to anarchy? Do you want to move the flashpoint from South China Sea to Europe? What do you want to do? You see, Uday, I have a very clear point of view. Death and destruction, and humanity and civilization cannot coexist. Either you have death or destruction, either you have humanity or civilization. The world has to take a call. You have to call spade a spade. You cannot let these elements justify killings in the name of religion. We cannot let them hijack the religions and to start this clash of civilizations. This is too much. These are dangerous elements. And one last point, Uday, for the peace of world, I repeat again, I appeal to all the people who matter. Please throw out Erdogan out of NATO. He's trying to build a flashpoint within infighting of NATO, or trying to put a US in front of USSR in one way or another. This man is dangerously ambitious, and his master China is funding him and his puppet brother Imran Khan to fan up emotions to make Europe unstable. It's high time. We have been warning them of this. The world should see this and act now, and stop being politically correct. Support what is correct.
Indeed. Yes, Sriram Kari.
If the Muslims of the world look carefully at the world map, they will realize the greatest attack against Islam is happening in China, where Imran Khan neither can see, nor speak, nor listen. Millions of people have been incarcerated, a practical genocide, or give up all your rights and become what we dictate you to become is happening. Both Erdogan and Imran are very uncomfortable about the plight of Muslims, and they are doing this to take away the attention of the Muslim world, creating a red herring in Paris where they should be focusing in around Beijing. But this is the tactical part. As Sumit said, Imran and Erdogan are paid servants of Xi Jinping. They will have no option but to take orders from the communist master. But the point the larger world must not miss, Mahathir Mohamad, Imran Khan, Erdogan, they are insignificant. What is important is, will secular leaders across the world stand up and state this issue, that freedom of speech is important, sacrosanct and complete. And nobody can say, your statement is hurting my religious sentiment. Religions are such across the world. There are 9 to 10 major religions. Their edicts may contradict each other. We have to live with it. Tomorrow somebody says, you eat beef, it hurts my religion, I'll behead you. Sikhs say you can't smoke. Islam says you can't drink. So will you start killing each other? Correct. Everybody has a right to follow their religion, impose their religion on others. No, that is the right of secularism. What is important is not what these fundamentalists like Mahathir Mohamad, who's a crazy old man, or Imran Khan, who's half sold to communist China, half to Taliban, they don't matter. Secular leaders in every country must say, not just Muslims.
Okay, let's get some reactions now from Dr. Awad.
But no
Dr. Awad has also been waiting patiently.
I'm offended.
And Professor Nalapur. Dr. Awad.
I think there are two issues here we have to distinguish between. First of all, there is an issue of killing of innocent people, which is condemnable by every human being. We all agree on that. The second issue is that you are talking of freedom of speech when you are allowing despising a religious person in the name of religion, when European Union themselves, that it has nothing to do with the freedom of speech. So the fight against Macron is nothing to do with the killing, by the way. It is the France who have said, I support these cartoons which despise the Prophet who is respected by 2 billion people all across the world. So we have two different issues. Erdogan does not represent my Islam or me. Not at all. He is, if thanks to our Prophet that he said he is the last Prophet, otherwise Erdogan would have declared himself not Khalifa. He could have declared himself a Prophet as well. He is taking full advantage, mobilizing radicalism based on mobilization and ignorance and taking full advantage. We have been talking in your channel for years that it is the trends they are targeting the South Asian Muslim community, which have picked up the Sufi way of life. They have been inherited and incarnated into the Indian and society in South Asia, and they become part of a culture, of a civilization. Our gods, 2500 BC, have said, don't despise the God you don't pray for. So why shall we, in the name of freedom of speech, declare that this is why Cavalli have pulled up the shoes of where they have declared some Indian goddess on the shoe? Why Manili in 2005 French, they have pulled it out of the market and apologized to the Hindu sentiment? Why if the correction, the Europe, the UK, US, everybody, why shall we use religion as a way of symbolic to hurt the other people feeling? If we have to learn from India, is the tolerance of India that have made every religion flourish, because Indian society is indigenous and Indian civilization, that we should respect other feeling and you should not despise the other people. That's how the way we should see each other.
Professor Nalapat, Sumit, I'm just coming to Professor Nalapat has not reacted as yet. Yes.
No, I only want to point out that, the cartoons against Prophet Muhammad were extremely tasteless. But I would also like to say that Charlie Hebdo, if you look at the cartoons, it is, that the magazine has done on Jesus Christ and some of these sacred figures of Christianity, they are in equally bad taste, extremely bad taste, if I may say so. And this is a country which is 90% Christian. So I would only like to say, I would like to agree totally with Dr. Awad that yes, the cartoons were awful, atrocious, in bad taste, but the reality is that nothing justifies violence and especially beheading. But I would like to end by saying one thing. I analyze, for example, the literature of the so-called freedom fighters against Muammar Gaddafi. And Gaddafi was frankly an idiot. He was against India on Kashmir, and the man was half mad. But I would only like to say that when I saw the pamphlets of those people who were opposing him, they were not opposing him because he was an idiot or half mad. They were opposing him because they wanted to establish a regime in which Christians would be killed, in which Jews would have their heads cut off, in which those who have the moderate view of Islam, which is the correct view of Islam, would have their heads cut off if they did not accept a hardcore view of Islam. And these are the people who have been funded, armed, and incentivized by the very countries that are now being attacked. Please check what I used to write. I wrote many times, watch out, the Arab Spring is going to be a Wahhabi winter. Watch out, the monsters that you are creating are going to come back and bite you. And that is what is happening. But I fully agree, this has nothing to do with Islam, but it has a lot to do with making people, radical in the belief that your short-term geopolitical interests will be served. Eventually, this will come back and bite you. The Americans Clinton created the Taliban. And then what happened? You had 9/11. So I can only say, I hope this is a warning to France. There is no good terrorist, there is no good radical, and the Indian way, the Indian path of moderation, the Indian path of acceptance, the Indian path of inclusivity is the only civilized path. And in nowhere in the world should you try to breed radicalism and fundamentalism. And I'd like to say there are countries in the world that have been destroyed by radicalism and fundamentalism that have been built by Turkey and by Pakistan, being supported by some of the countries who are now correctly upset at what's happening by France. And I stand with France on this totally. I stand with the people of France against this kind of activity. But I'd simply like to say, unless we remember history, we will repeat it. So this is a creation of that Chechen boy, for example. He may have been, radicalized by somebody who was radicalized by somebody who thought that's a way of getting even at Putin. For all you know, one doesn't know. So please don't allow this kind of genie to escape out of the bottle.
Okay. Yes, Sumit Piri.
I think, Uday, I have just 3 quick points, 10 seconds. The point number 1 is, if there's an issue or anything, let the civil societies oppose that. Let not governments get into it. That is politicization. Point number 2, I want to ask Erdogan, you had 8 to 9% Christian population. Where have they evaporated? They have gone with the wind in the Mediterranean, or they have evaporated on a bright sunny day? And point number 3, Uday, these secessionists will never succeed in India, because who is our leader? Our leader is Dr. APJ Abul Kalam, the missile man of India, whom I salute and endorse on this TV. We do not support people like Gulbuddin Hekmatyar. That will defeat them, and let them try in India. They have failed and they will continue to fail.
All right.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.